I'll be reading Hebrews 12, 1 through 3. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart.
Okay, that's me.
I don't see anybody jumping up to introduce Rich, so look at this picture.
Throws you back, doesn't it?
What? He must dye his hair. And he's wearing a men's girdle to hold it in. How many of you have never, ever met Rich Dolan before? Just raise your hand. Yeah, I know you're shy. You don't want to really do that. But I'll tell you what, Rich is we know why he comes back, and it's not just because of the grandkids. And it's good to have he and Rhonda. Now, see, Rhonda's not dyeing her hair. I can see it sparkling there. I've never ever seen Rich in the pulpit. You know what color my shirt is today? Never seen Rich preach in anything but a blue shirt. So I'm glad you stuck to tradition, Billy.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yep.
This is for my children. I'm going to do this. My son Randall's here, and one of the times when I was here, I'd been here, 10 or 12 years, my boys asked me, Daddy, how come every time you get in the pulpit, you move the microphone? I said, I do not. And they said, yes, you do. I said, well, it's set for the little people, the short people, And so I have to get it up here. And they said, well, even if it's set right, you get up there and you pull it down and then you pull it back up. I went, I do not. The next 3 times I got up, I did that without even thinking about it. I went, doggone, they're right. I hate that. So that's for you, Randall. I hope you enjoyed it. It's our son Randall and our daughter-in-law Cassie and our granddaughter Kinley are here today, and so they're over here too. I hope those of you who know them, will come and hug on them too. It really is great to be here. You know that we would come back for our kids. We love coming back here too and seeing all of you people. I wish we had more time. We've already been here a month though, and seen all our kids and my parents. And by the time you get to everybody, your time runs out. But we are glad to be here. It's just going to be 3 or 4 days. We'll be here Wednesday night too. So maybe if we don't get to see some of you today, we can see you again on Wednesday night. I love what you've done with the place. Last time I was here, this looked a lot different. We were meeting in the OC still, and so this is really good. I want to tell you too, and I hope you'll take this the right way, when I saw that the baskets were leaving, I wanted to mess with Scott a little bit, Scott Keel, and so I sent him an email and said, hey Scott, I heard you're looking for a minister. Where do I send my application? So he sent back an email that said something like, well, you can send in a resume if you want to, but I don't think you're what we're looking for. Okay, and that's my friend. Thank you. No, and seriously, I do want to tell you, I know that you guys appreciate the baskets, and I do too. I don't know anybody in America who could have followed us and stayed here 7 years and been effective. And not just because we were so great. The deal is we've just been here so long. And you're used to all the stuff we did and everything. And most of the time somebody new comes in and they're just there a year or two and they move on. And the baskets have really been impressive to stay here, to be effective. I hope you know how blessed you've been. And I hope you encourage them as they start their new work with Open Door. Today we are going to study from Hebrews chapter 12. So if you have your Bibles, please turn there. We're going to start out, well, when he starts out, this is the great scene of running the race. And so you need to know that, and you need to keep that in mind. The writer of Hebrews is going to use the idea of running the race. And you look up here, you see a marathon. There's tons of people running. There are lots of people who start the Christian race. But he's going to tell us today, here's what I want you to do to keep running. Now, there's a couple things we need to keep in mind about this. So turn first to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. It's another place that Paul talks about the race. And beginning in verse 24, here's what he says. Do you not know that all those who run in a race, all run, but only one receives the prize. Run in such a way that you might win. The race that we're in, there's not a first place. But what he tells us is run with all your heart. Run like you're trying to win the race. Don't quit. Don't give up. Don't stop. Keep running. When I was a boy and lived out in Imperial, Texas, and I'm a hick, and by the way, I need to tell you, those of you who know, in Cambodia, I speak in Khmer most of the time. So when I come back here, I have to get all my idioms out because they don't translate over there. When I say y'all and skin of their teeth and straddling the fence and stuff like that, it doesn't translate in Khmer. So when I come here, I have to use them all. So I'm going to use everything I can today and make this a stinking good sermon. Okay? That's on. Okay. Just so you know that. He says, run the race. When I was a boy in Imperial, I remember going to a track meet and watching what they used to call the mile race. It's 4 laps around the track. There was this guy from Valentine, Texas, that he got lapped by everyone else that was running. That means they had finished, and he'd only run 3 laps. If it would have been me, I would have quit. The race is over. There's no way to win. They got 1st, 2nd, 10th, 20th. He's going to be last place. He kept running. Why? He was running to win. Now, he wasn't going to win, but he ran. This is the attitude that Paul's talking about here. Keep running the race. It doesn't matter what people around you do. It doesn't matter if other people have finished. It doesn't matter. You run the race. Run like you're trying to win. Another thing we need to remember comes from 2 Timothy. So if you turn there to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 and 8, this is close to the end of Paul's life. By the way, Wayne, Tim, what time do I need to stop? Okay. In Cambodia, I preach about 2 hours a time, so I hope you guys have settled in good. 2 Timothy chapter 4, this is close to the end of Paul's life. He's going to say, I fought the good fight. I finished the course. I kept the faith. You hear what he said? He finished the race. He's done. He knows I finished. And now verse 8. In the future, there's laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. What's he going to get? Because he finished the race. He's going to get the crown of righteousness. That's what we're after. That's the goal. He's going to receive from God the crown of righteousness. But notice, it's not just for him. Look at the end of the verse. Not only for me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. What's he said? Everybody who finishes the race gets the crown. Everybody comes in first. If we just finish, don't quit. We got to finish. And yes, when we're running in life, there are times we're going to be tired, and there are times it's going to hurt. There are times where we want to quit, we want to stop. Don't quit. The crown is for those who finish. Keep going. Just keep going. Now back to Hebrews chapter 12. In my version, the first thing he says is therefore. Therefore means because or so. And anytime somebody writes that, you know to look up at the verses up before that, because he's made some kind of argument. So he's going to say, therefore, because since we have such a great cloud of witnesses. So who are those crowd of witnesses? When you see this picture, I picked a stadium. And these are people cheering. And this is the picture he's given to us. We're running a race in life, and there's a crowd of people in the stadium, and they're cheering for us. Who are these people? They're all the ones in chapter 11. The great chapter of faith before this that he talks about. He talks about Abel, and he talks about Enoch, and he talks about Noah. And he talks about how Abraham left his land. And Abraham's in the stand saying, I know it's hard. Keep running. And he talks about Sarah, and he talks about Abraham who was asked to give up his son. And Abraham hollers for us, keep running, keep running. And he talks about Isaac, and he talks about Jacob, and he talks about Joseph, and he talks about Moses, and Rahab, and Joshua, and all the things that they did. And at the end of the chapter, he says, and I don't even have time to tell you about Gideon and Barak and Samson and David and Solomon and all these people. And when you read those last few verses of chapter 11, and you see all the things that they went through, they were stoned, they were sawed in two, their land was taken from them, they were persecuted in all kinds of ways, but they kept running. And they got the crown. And now they're in the stands. And yeah, I don't think that people from heaven can look down and see us specifically today, but their testimony talks to us, screams to us out of the Bible. It says, keep running, go, go, go. Run, Nathan. Run, Wayne. Run, run. Don't stop. I know it's hard, but go, go, go. And every time we fall and get up, they're there cheering for us. You struggle with sin, David says, get up, run. It's difficult to be honest and truthful. Abraham says, run. People don't do what they ought to do. Moses says, come on, go, get up, keep running. Since we have this great cloud of witnesses, we need to run. And then at the next part of the verse, he says, since we have this crowd of witnesses, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us. He tells us we got two things we need to take off. One is burdens, obstacles. My version says encumbrances. That's anything that's on our back that keeps us from running. Now see this lady, can she run very fast? No, because she's burdened down. She's got things on top of her. She can't move and do what she wants to do. And those are the things he's telling us. Get rid of the things that keep you from running the race. Now the next part is sin. But this part is, I think it has to mean then, things that can be good things, but to keep us from running. If our job, go ahead and go back to the other one because I want to see it. If our job keeps us from running the race, then throw it off. If our relationship with someone, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friend that we have, keeps us from running the race, then throw it off. If something that we're chasing or that we're after, a position or education or something, keeps us from running the race, he says throw it off. How silly would it be for a person, a sprinter in the Olympics, to have a 50-pound backpack on him while he's running? You say the guy's a moron. Is moron an idiom that doesn't translate? The guy's an idiot, a stinking idiot. What's he doing? Funny I should think of Randall when I thought of this. My son Randall is a physical guy, and 4 or 5 months ago he went to New Mexico to where the white sands meet the mountains, and he ran a marathon with a ruck pack on his back, like a 50-pound pack on his back. Ran a marathon. I don't know why. But you know it has to be harder, it has to be more difficult with the added weight. How much faster, how much better could he have run the race without the weight? And that's what he's telling us here. Don't get rid of the things. Yeah, they may be good things, but if they keep us from running the race, then throw them off. And the second thing he says, now go to the next one. Get rid of the sin that so easily entangles us. Now this is a guy with wires all around him. Imagine trying to walk. I used to run at this little park in San Angelo, and I was running out there one night, and I got some wire wrapped around my leg, and I couldn't hardly get it off. And you're trying to run, and you're trying to kick it off, and you know what happened? Flat on the ground. And that's what happens to us with sin. Sin will tangle us up, will tangle our legs up, will keep us from running, will trip us up. So he says, get rid of that. However it's creeping into your life, find the things and get rid of them, because they're not going to help you run. They're going to trip you up. In Ephesians 4, at the end of the verse 27, he's talking about anger in that position, and he says, don't give the devil an opportunity, because the devil wants to trip us up. And we've got to take, anytime we see sin coming in, any temptations we see, we've got to do the best we can to get them out of our life, because they'll tangle us up, they'll trip us, and they'll keep us from our prize. in the end of this verse then, at the end of verse 1, he said, we've got this great crowd cheering us on. We've thrown off the burdens to keep us from running. We've gotten rid of sin, trying to get rid of sin, and that's a continual process. Trying to get rid of sin that tangles us up. Then what do? Let us run with endurance the race that's set before us. This is my son Randall at one of the, what's that called? Tough Mudder things, where you have to run and climb and jump, and it's hard and you're tired and you want to stop. But he tells us, run with endurance the race that's set before us. Why does he have to say endurance? Because it's going to be hard. You wouldn't say run with endurance. You'd say run quickly if the race was over and it was easy. But he says run with endurance because it's going to be hard. There are times that sin is going to just seem to beat us down. There are times that people are not going to do what they ought to do. There's times that it's going to be difficult in relationships. It's going to be difficult in our workplace to be a Christian. It's going to be difficult in America to be a Christian. And he says, don't quit. You got to keep running. You got to keep running. Even when you think, oh, I want to stop. You got to keep running. Run with endurance the race set before us. Now, verse 2 and verse 3 will help us to do that, help us with some ways to do that. In verse 2, he says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of the faith. Go ahead and go to the next slide up here. It shows some of these. Fix your eyes on Jesus. This is me and my family. When we're on a vacation together, I'm pointing out, as the wise father that I am, pointing out something very important for my children to see. I don't remember what it was. And see how 3 of them have fixed their eyes on whatever it is? Yes. One has fixed his eyes on the camera, okay? But when you fix your eyes, it means you turn and look. And that's what he's telling us here. Turn and look to Jesus. Because there's times when we're running, at least for me, when I'm running, I look down and I think about myself and how tired I am and how hard it is and how difficult. He says, turn and fix your eyes on Jesus. Look ahead. Look where you're going. Remember what Jesus has done for us. He's going to tell us. Fix your eyes on Jesus. And what does he call Jesus then? Not just thinking about ourselves, but fixing our eyes on Jesus. What does he say Jesus has done? First, he's the author. My version says the author and perfecter of faith. The man who read today, it said pioneer. It means the same thing. He started it. He wrote the book on faith. He was the first one as far as in preeminence, as importance, to show us the faith. Fix our eyes and remember that he's the one who did this. Remember that he's the perfecter of our faith. He's the one who makes our faith worthwhile, makes it important. Turn back just a couple chapters in Hebrews chapter 10. There are 3 times that the man here is going to talk about Jesus' sacrifice. In verse 10, he's going to say, by this will we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. That's perfect. It's done. Then in verse 12, he's going to say, but he having offered one sacrifice for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of God. It's perfect. It's done. Verse 14, for by one offering he has perfected for all time those who are sanctified. You hear what he's told us? Jesus has perfected it. Jesus has offered the sacrifice so that we can know we're going to have the prize. Fix our eyes on him. Don't think about, but don't dwell on my own shortcomings, my own sins, my own problems, my own difficulties. Fix our eyes on Jesus. And remember that he's taken care of it all for us. Today, in one of the songs, we said he's taken all my burdens on him so that I can be ransomed. He's done it. Now fix our eyes on him and run that way. Then he's going to say about Jesus, back in chapter 12 again, the author and perfecter of the faith, who for the joy set before him. Now we're going to come back to that. But think about this. What was the joy? For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame. What does it mean to endure the cross? You saw some of the pictures, you saw some of the thoughts today. The beating that Jesus took, the time on the cross, the death on the cross, how difficult that was, the separation from the Father when he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Did Jesus want to do that? I mean, we have to say yes, but then we also know that in the garden, he prayed, Father, if there's any other way, take this cup from me. But Jesus endured it for the joy that was coming. And you know that he could have stopped at any time, because in Matthew 26, when he's talking to Peter, Matthew doesn't tell us it's Peter that pulled his sword, John does, but in Matthew, Peter pulls his sword, cuts off the ear of one of the slaves. What does Jesus say? Put your sword back up. Don't you know I could call 12 legions of angels? See, Jesus could have stopped at any time. By the way, how many is 12 legions? Do you know that? A legion is about 6,000. So 12 legions, 72,000 angels. One of my friends always liked that song. He could have called 10,000 angels. He said we should change it and sing 72,000 angels, but it just doesn't work in there. It doesn't fit very well. He should have called 72,000 angels. It's just hard to get in there. 10 gets the point across. Okay, you get it. But he could have called 72,000 angels, and you know angels killed 185,000 guys in the Old Testament, one angel. So he could have stopped the deal anytime he wanted to, but he endured the cross. Why? For the joy set before him. We're going to see that. He also says he despised the shame. What is the shame of the cross? The cross was for killers, for the lowest people in society, for the very bottom. The cross was for those who were not religious, those who hated God, those who, and you remember all the people in Luke. Read through Luke sometime and see all the people who mocked Jesus. Said, if you're really the Christ, come down off the cross. Maybe we'll believe you. There's a shame in that. Galatians chapter 3, verse 13 tells us that one who's cursed, who's on the cross, who dies like that. And Jesus took that curse, took that shame, despised it. Despised it means, I think that's nothing. Okay, it was something, but he says, I think that's nothing compared to the joy. So what's the joy? What's the joy Jesus had? Because he went to the cross, I can be saved. Because he went to the cross, you can be saved. His joy is that we can be with him. We can be brought back to God. We can live with God forever. That's the joy. And he wouldn't have had it. We wouldn't have had it if he hadn't endured the cross and the shame. So was it worth it? Yes. Yes. Reese, I appreciate your comments this morning, because I'm just thinking about how much joy we have being with our kids. So, yeah, we have to fly 30 hours and we have to stay up late and our bodies are all turned around. But there's so much joy to be with them that it's worth whatever we have to do. And that's what he's telling us in Hebrews. Fix our eyes on Jesus, because he endured things that were terrible for the joy of welcoming us in and saying, come be with me. When we do that, the endurance that we have to have seems pretty small. It's not as difficult. Also, in the end of verse 3, what has Jesus done now? I said verse 3, verse 2. Sit down at the right hand of the throne of God. Now, when we remember Jesus, here's what he did. He came to earth. He made it possible for us to be saved. He ran the race. And now what's he doing? Sitting down at the right hand of the throne of God. This was a promise made from in Psalms 110 and verse 1, quoted many times in the New Testament, that Jesus would sit down at the right hand of God. We're told that while he's there, he intercedes for us, so that every day, if we sin, Jesus can say, yes, but he's one of ours. And the devil can say, did you see what he did? And Jesus can say, yeah, but he's one of ours. I bought him. I bought her. Every day. It also reminds us that the promise of the reward for us, the promise of the crown, is ours too. Because we'll be there too. We'll be at the throne. We'll be with Jesus if we just hang on, if we just keep running, if we don't stop. Hebrews 10 that we looked at before, verse 12, says, but he, having offered one sacrifice for sins for all time, sat down at the right hand of God. And that's where he is. And so then verse 3, back in Hebrews 12, verse 3 tells us, consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself. Why? So that you will not grow weary and lose heart. When we think of how hard the race was that Jesus had, when we fix our eyes on him, then that gives us energy to go on, to not quit, to not stop, to not be weary, to not lose heart, to not give up. Because we know he finished, we're going to have it too. When I was in college, I was the intramural director, the activities, sports director for our club. And my club always won the intramural, the sports trophy. And so one time they had a big race at for the college. Every club could enter. You could enter like 5 or 6 people, and you got points based on how well they did. And then you also got entrance points. If you just finished the race, you got 5 points. And so it was easy to find, there's always some morons who love to run. And so I'm sorry, there are always some people who love to run, some kind, loving people. And even back then, there was easy to get 2 or 3 who wanted to race. But the last 2 or 3 spots for us were always hard to fill. And so I remember one time I went and asked my roommate, come on, Dave, we need someone else to run. He said, I hate to run. I said, I do too, but we need somebody to run. So he said, okay, so he signed up. It's a 3-mile course. You got to finish in 30 minutes to get the points. We had a guy come in second, we had a guy come in 5th, and then some of the rest of us did not quite so well. And then there's 28 minutes gone by, and here comes Dave around the corner. If he doesn't finish, it's worthless. It's useless. We don't get the points. So I went back down the road beside him and said, come on, Dave. Come on, Dave, you can do it. He said, come on, Dave, you can do it. And I was doing that too. Come on, Dave, you can do it. Come on, come on, come on, run, Dave. Come on, Dave, go, go. And he finished. We got the points. He finished in time. And he ran off to the side and he puked his guts out. But it was great. We got the points. We won the trophy that year by 5 points. His points from running. And it reminded me, when you're running, it helps when somebody comes and runs beside you. Especially when you're tired. When you don't think you can go on. When you want to quit. And I think that's the picture we get here. Jesus endured so much. He ran the race. He finished. He is at the right hand of God. But he comes back and he runs beside us. And so in the picture, in the stadium, we have all the people from the Bible saying, run, 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 you can do it. And we've thrown off the things, and we looked at the goal, and we see Jesus, and we know if we finish, we get the prize. And he says, come on down. And then he comes back, and he runs beside us. He says, come on, you can do it. Don't quit. Don't quit. I know it's hard. I know people lie about you. I know Christians don't act like they should. I know that things in life are tough. I know that circumstances are not fair. I know. Keep running, keep running, keep running. I hope today I've encouraged us to remember, if you haven't had hard circumstances, you will sometime. Keep running. Don't quit. Everybody around wants us to finish the race. Just keep running. Today, if you need to respond to our Jesus in any way, It could be for baptism or prayers or for help or whatever it is that you need. We hope that you'll come in a minute when we stand and sing. For all of us, remember, if you're a Christian, keep running the race. Don't stop for anything, anytime. If you need to come today, please come while we stand and sing.